Welcome to Heart of the Haven, an education series about domestic and family violence and how we help. It's a pervasive issue that knows no boundaries and impacts people from all walks of life. I'm Samantha Anderson from the Haven Nepean Women's Shelter, and today I'm joined by Sam Campbell, Executive Officer, Client Services from the Haven. Sam brings over 10 years' experience in the domestic and family violence sector, specialising in working with women and children. Together, we're going to take you into the heart of change, looking at what guides the casework at the Haven. Hi, Sam. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Excellent. So what does guide the casework support that the Haven provides?
At the Haven, we embed everything we do in our foundational practice frameworks. So for those of you that aren't in the sector and don't necessarily know the lingo, foundational practice frameworks refers to the theories and ways of doing the work that we do. It comes right through every single thing that we do at the Haven, and it's actually part of the Women's Community Shelters model. What that ensures for clients is that they get continuity of service and care through these practice frameworks. The key practice frameworks really for us at the Haven are person-centred, trauma-informed or trauma-responsive, and strengths-based. What we do is apply this right across every single person that works with us. So it doesn't matter if you're a newborn baby coming to our service, if you're a teenager, if you're a young woman or a woman who may be retired or elderly, we apply those practice frameworks so that we have a continuity of care and support for everyone who walks through our door.
Okay, let's break that down a little bit. Tell me more about the person-centred approach.
So person-centred approach means that we tailor the support that we give to each client based on their individual needs and their individual experience. So every woman or child comes to the Haven with their own experience of life, and in particular their own experience of the impacts of domestic and family violence. So it's not for us to say what their greatest needs are or what their primary needs might be. We have to approach every casework goal or plan that we implement on a person-centred approach. It can be a little bit tricky sometimes to unpack because when you're working with people who've experienced domestic and family violence, sometimes they've lost the heart of the person that they are. And so really at the core of that person-centred approach is motivating and empowering people to find again who they are, what they've experienced, and how they can lead the change that they want to be able to make. So when we're going through a case plan, as an example, we don't just go, hey, do you need some employment? When a woman comes to us and says, I really need to work or I really want to work because that's really fulfilling for me, we go, okay, what is it that you know already? What is your experience of work? Is there any experience of work? And then the question I like to ask is, what do you want to be when you grow up? Whether you're, again, 16 years old or 60 years old. And so we work with that person around not just let's get you a job so that you've got some financial stability, but what is it that you're actually interested and passionate about? Because that will add longevity and stability to their financial and employment goals.
Yeah. I love that. So following on from that, what then is, what's the strengths-based approach?
Yeah. So strengths-based approach is my personal favourite framework to work from, and that's because it's all about empowering someone. So for women and children that have experienced domestic and family violence, often that is drenched in deficit model. So they've been told again and again what they're not good at, what they can't do, and pointed out weaknesses, be they real or not, that the perpetrator of violence perceives weaknesses to be for them. And so what a strengths-based approach does is we work from the core of what somebody's strengths are, not what their deficits are. And it's a really skilled level of personal interaction that our caseworkers do in a strengths-based approach because, as I explained, women come with such a deficit model of thinking because of the impacts in domestic and family violence. We really have to prioritise and work hard for them to be able to pick out and seek what their strengths are and then to empower them to believe that themselves as well.
Yeah.
So an example of that is a woman, who came to be with us, and she had 5 children, and we asked her what she wants for herself, and she said, "Oh, nothing. I'm not good at anything." And the more we unpacked it, and the more we started to work with her in that person-centred and strengths-based approach, we were able to figure out that actually she was the support for not only her children surviving domestic and family violence, but she had been supporting other family members who were experiencing it as well. So she was this rock-solid core woman that not only had survival skills, but care and compassion. So to us, community sector work made sense for her. We could see the foundations of all that she had done for herself, her children and her family, and that she could actually apply that as a career. And it was something that she was interested in but didn't see as a strength because it was just life for her. It was what she had to do every day to survive. And so the more we worked with her, we were able to unpack and model for her what a caseworker does and what that experience is, because she received that directly. And then she could draw those parallels between, hang on, that's what I do for my family. That's how I support my friends who might be experiencing something difficult. And so then we got her engaged in some tertiary study through TAFE.
That's amazing. I love that. Then following from that, what is the trauma-informed approach part of the framework?
Yeah. So trauma-informed is about us at the Haven having an understanding that every single thing that we do, be it verbal, non-verbal, spatial, has to be trauma-informed. So we are a trauma-responsive service, which means that we respond to trauma day in, day out. Every client that comes through our doors has some experience of trauma, whether it's domestic and family violence or homelessness, because that fear of not knowing where you're going to go or not being homeless is a trauma in and of itself. We also work with women who come from countries where there may be war, or they may have had to flee because they may not have had the same rights that they have here, or they've had an experience of, how do I explain it? They've had an experience of isolation or not being able to be who they are through their experience of themselves, their sexuality, their gender. And so we have people that come from really complex backgrounds, and being themselves out in the world has been a really traumatic event, or being at home with an experience of domestic and family violence has been traumatic. So every single thing we do, no matter who walks through our doors, we ensure that the way we set up the space is trauma-informed to really reduce the impacts of domestic violence through non-verbal cues of safety and calmness. So we support our clients to see and experience what a healthy, happy home feels like, and that's part of being trauma-informed. When a client doesn't make an appointment on time, or becomes a bit disengaged, we don't write her off. We have an understanding that there is a lot on her plate and that she may just be in survival mode at that time, or there may be another priority for her. We also have an understanding from a trauma-informed lens that for women who have experienced domestic and family violence, often they have to carry the burden of not only repairing the family and repairing themselves, but having to heal the family. So women come to us and they're the ones that have to find a safe home, ensure kids are going to school, see a counsellor to support their own healing and start to reconcile and understand what's happened for themselves, see and support their children through emotional regulation. And so the way that we have set up our staffing structure to have specialist children's workers and family workers and youth workers is so that we take some of that pressure off the mum. We have an understanding that she needs to heal from her own trauma, and that expectation shouldn't be on her to have to also heal her children in that moment of crisis when they're with us. So we support with that in-house and specialist workers to be able to do that.
Yeah. So how do you know that what the Haven does and this framework, how do you know that it works?
So we do follow an outcomes model, and part of that is so that we can demonstrate to women the growth that they have made. So we use a tool called the Empowerment Star, which sets out for women all aspects of her life, be it money, education, housing, employment, and we get her to go through the 9 points of the star to figure out where does she think she's tracking in each part of her life and where does she want support to do that. So it is really person-centered and, again, really strengths-based, because we're getting her to actually look at what she's already achieved and then determine what it is she wants to achieve after that. The first step of that is just that base stability. So housing, they're with us. Financial independence is often the second one. But then we start to reach a little bit bigger in terms of self-esteem, confidence, support networks, and embedding her in community. We know that it works because out of all of the outcomes tools that we do, we see the growth of women. And when they transition to outreach, we're able to share with them the growth that they've undertaken in the 3 to 6 months that they're with us. The other key factor that really comes to mind is that 99.5% of women that have come through our doors have not returned to a relationship with the abusive partner. And that's a huge stat, right? And what that tells us is that we're breaking the cycle of domestic violence. We're not only creating safety in that crisis intervention point, but we're creating longevity of safety for families and supporting women to be able to navigate safety post-separation and know who to go to, where to get the help, and what strengths they have to ride through that post-separation experience.
Yeah. Thank you so much for our conversation today, Sam. I really have found it very insightful. And what I do want to say to anyone listening today is that if you need support or somebody you know needs support, please visit our website. It's www.thehaven.org.au. We do have a list of services that you can contact, as well as our own service that you can contact on the contacts page. So please reach out and get the support that you need for yourself or somebody you know. Thank you so much for your time.